In one of my recent videos, my Eastern Conference standings predictions for this upcoming season, I had the New York Knicks as my number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Many people disagreed with this and thought it was way too high. So in today's video, I'm going to go through basically what I think the Knicks are going to do this season and explain why I think they're a legitimate contender and why they are my sleeper pick to actually win it all this year. I'm not going to pick the Knicks as my number 1 team to win the NBA championship, obviously, but I think they have a legitimate chance to win it all this year, and I think they've put together a really good team. Last year they were the 4th seed and a lot of people thought that was a fluke. I completely disagree. I think they're going to improve off of that this year. They definitely made some improvements to their team in the offseason, and in today's video I'm going to go through basically what this team is looking like going into this season, why I think they're a sleeper pick to win it all this season. I know a lot of you will disagree with this take, but just make sure you hear me out and watch the video fully so you can see my full analysis on the situation. With that being said, let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about the Knicks is how last season they had one of, if not the very best defense in the entire NBA. I mean, obviously last year hiring Tom Thibodeau, bringing him in, we know he's more of a defensive coach and he did a fantastic job this season with this team's defense, and that's a massive understatement. He basically completely turned around the style of which this team plays defense. Everyone on this team plays to their strengths defensively. They do a fantastic job on things like rotations, communicating with each other, and has some fantastic rim protectors as well, and really maximize the abilities of those players. And overall last season they ranked number 1 in a lot of categories when it comes to defense. When we look at some stats here from their defense last season, they held their opponents overall to a 44% field goal percentage, which was the lowest in the NBA, so number 1 there. Held their opponents to only 38 field goal attempts made per game, which was also the best in the NBA. Only a 33.7 3-point percentage, which again was the number 1 in the entire NBA, a 107.8 defensive rating, which was the 3rd best, 43.8 opponents' points in the paint, so obviously having some really good rim protectors down there, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on as well. This was 4th in the NBA, and also they were 2nd in the league in preventing fast break points with only 10.5 per game for their opponents. And we got to keep in mind here that they did all of this last season, or almost all of this, without their elite rim protector and Mitchell Robinson. So now this year the Knicks are going to have one of the best interior defending teams with an elite rim protector like Mitchell Robinson, who could potentially lead the league in blocks this season with his amazing shot blocking and overall rim protection ability, and a guy like Nerlens Noel, who's insanely underrated. This dude is really truly one of the best defenders in the NBA right now. He's very versatile, but also a very good pick and roll defender and a very good rim protector, and it's been proven time and time again. And even in today's NBA, when there's a lot of 3-point shooting, interior defense is still the most important part of defense. If you don't have a good defensive anchor, you're going to be in big trouble, but if you do, you're going to have a successful defense. We've seen this with the Jazz, who pretty much overall last season on paper in terms of their personnel, you'd think that their defense was probably around average, but they had a top 4 defense in the NBA pretty much just because of their amazing defensive anchor in Rudy Gobert. I think this year, if you see Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel getting pretty much all of the minutes at center for this team, they're going to be near impossible to stop on defense just because of their elite rim protection and pick and roll defense alone, and this amazing defensive system that still has very good perimeter defense, very good on-ball defense at times with guys like Julius Randle, who's also improved to be a pretty good defender, and really just other guys on this team. Everyone has bought in defensively, and this system under Tom Thibodeau has been one of, if not the best defenses in the league for last season. And now that they're getting Mitchell Robinson back, I can see this team pretty easily being the best defensive team in the league this season. So now let's talk about the Knicks offense. And last season there were times where the Knicks offense and their offensive flow as a team held them back a little bit, and especially in the playoffs they really never got their offense going against the Atlanta Hawks, and ultimately got eliminated pretty easily in the first round. And last year when we look at some rankings, it's not a secret that this team had a slightly below average offense, ranking only 22nd in the NBA in offensive rating with a 110.2, 23rd in the NBA in true shooting with about a 56% 40% true shooting, which is slightly below the league average right now, and 24th in the league in assist to turnover ratio with a 1.65 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. So really last year this team's offense wasn't great, but I would be very, very shocked if this season this team didn't have an over average offensive team, because they not only in the offseason made some big improvements, but they also have young players that are going to improve offensively this season. In the offseason this year, obviously adding Kemba Walker, who's a bona fide scorer. I mean, he's definitely regressing and getting a little bit older right now, but he can do a fantastic job coming off of screens, shooting the three, being a pretty good playmaker. Last season averaging about 20 points per game, 4 assists on 42% from the field. So he can be a reliable scoring option at times as well and run this team's offense at times. And a guy like Evan Fournier, who can be a very valuable shooter, floor spacer, and can sometimes create his own shot and be a very valuable overall scorer. Last season putting up about 17 points per game on 41% from 3 on around 7 attempts per game. He definitely improved last season, probably had a career year when it comes to shooting, and we saw in the Olympics too this year how he absolutely dominated for France, and he's going to continue to get better and provide a lot for this team offensively. And then we look at some young players, a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, who's without a doubt going to continue to get better. We saw last year how good he was in the pick and roll, dribbling towards the basket, shooting floaters, creating his own shot, shooting threes, getting to the rim, and being a very good overall scorer, and averaging about 11.5 points per game last season on pretty good three-point shooting too, shooting about 39% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He's absolutely going to continue to mature this year, improve, and get a little bit more of an opportunity with this team as well. He had a very good rookie season and is definitely going to improve this season. And also a guy like Obi Toppin, who had a little bit of a disappointing rookie season, but I can definitely see him developing a little bit as well, becoming a reliable option for this team at times in the post, very reliable when this team gets running out in transition, and probably becoming one of the best lob threats on this team as well. So adding a couple of great scorers to this team, along with some young guys that are going to improve, this Knicks team is absolutely going to improve offensively this season. They also have incredible depth, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on as well. But when we look at this team in every aspect of offense, they have pretty much 2 or 3 guys that can do this at an elite level at every single aspect of offense. So when we look at scoring, I mean, we've got Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Kemba, who can all potentially put up 20 points per game when they're at their best. They have shooters that can space the floor and knock down threes at a very consistent level. Evan Fournier, like I mentioned, shooting 41% from 3 on 7 attempts per game. They re-signed Alec Burks, who can be a really valuable shooter for them last year, shooting almost 42% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. Like I mentioned, Emmanuel Quickly, who can space the floor, shot 39% from 3 last year on 5 attempts per game. And a guy like RJ Barrett, who really improved his 3-point shot last year, shooting 40% from 3, which was a huge improvement from the year before on about 4 attempts per game as well. They also have pretty good playmakers and overall passers, a guy like Julius Randle, who has great court vision, especially when he's in the post, and has great gravity in the post as well, drawing double teams and averaged 6 assists per game last season. And a guy like Derrick Rose, who was re-signed, he definitely proved last year that he still got it. He can be one of the primary playmakers on this team as well. Last season averaging around 4 assists per game, and I expect him to improve in this season. He showed last year, especially in the postseason, that he's still one of the better playmakers on this team. They also have guys that can screen, and this is really valuable for the flow of this offensive team. A guy like Taj Gibson, who averaged almost 4 screen assists per game last season. Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson, who both average almost around 3 screen assists per game last season. And guys that can be lob threats, so guys like Noel and Robinson at the rim, being very consistent and getting some easy baskets around the rim off of the pick and roll. And like I mentioned, a guy like Obi Toppin. So pretty much offensively, this team has everything, and they might not have a big star power offensively, but I think they will definitely be an over average offensive team this year with their amazing depth, their versatility as a team offensively. And like I said, I already see this team being one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the NBA. And with their improvements offensively that I expect this season, they're also probably going to be an over average offensive team. So this has already set them up to be pretty much a championship contender. In terms of my prediction for this Knicks team, like I mentioned in my standings predictions video, I think they're going to finish as the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference this year and have a record this year of 50-32. If last year was an 82-game season, they would have been on pace for a 47-35 record. So improving off of that, getting to the 50-win mark, and if I had to give a comparison for what I think this Knicks team is going to be this season, I would say the 2004 Detroit Pistons. We look at this team as an extremely good defensive team. The Knicks probably won't be as good defensively, but still the Knicks will probably be one of, if not the best defensive teams this season. And when we look at this Detroit team, just like I'm predicting for the Knicks here, they had pretty much a 50-win season. They won 54 games and were the 3rd seed in their conference and pretty much dominated the playoffs without a superstar player on their team. This team had Chauncey Billups, but really they didn't have like that top 20 player type of guy, just like the New York Knicks here, but just off of sheer grit and grind basketball, good offensive flow as a team, and amazing dominant defense, they were able to win the NBA championship. And I'm not saying the Knicks are going to win the championship, but if this team had a season just like the 2004 Detroit Pistons, I would not be surprised at all. This is just like that team was built. They have amazing depth, great coaching, and very good defense as a team, and this is the comparison that I'd say for the 2022 New York Knicks. So to cap off today's video, I basically think the Knicks are going to have probably the best defense in the NBA this year, an over-average offensive team, this combined with their very good depth, easily being able to run at least a 10-man rotation, their main star in Julius Randle, and their amazing coach in Tom Thibodeau will be good enough to get them 50 wins this season, in my opinion, and have them contending for the NBA championship in the playoffs. Am I saying that the New York Knicks are going to beat a healthy Brooklyn Nets team? Probably not. But with this good of a defense, anything could happen in the playoffs for this team. And also, we have to factor in that in the playoffs, anything can happen injury-wise. The Knicks could get a little lucky, like a lot of teams do in the NBA playoffs, and end up having a very strong chance to go to the NBA Finals with their extremely strong team, and maybe just a little bit of luck along the way in the NBA playoffs. Like I said, I see this team as just like the 2004 Detroit Pistons, a very strong defensive team, playing some grit and grind, good offensive team, and overall they're going to fit together, be a very deep team, and figure out a way to win without a superstar. So thank you all for watching today's video. Comment down below your thoughts on the New York Knicks and what you think they're going to do this season. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next video.